Our fourth and final participant in workplace relations is the government and the Fair Work Commission, or FWC. So we're going to see that abbreviation quite a bit. So how does our Australian workplace relations system work? On the one hand, we've got employees, and on the other hand, we've got employers. They engage in workplace relations. So employees, as we've learned, can be represented by a trade union to represent a group of employees. And on the other hand, employer associations can be created to represent a group of employers. We also learned that there's a human resource manager who has to balance the interests of both parties. But we want to ask the question, who sets and enforces the rules of the system? Well, that would be the government. So they're the ones that create this for this workplace relations system. They're the ones that create the policies and the laws and the rules of the game. And it's got three parts: the Fair Work Commission, the Fair Work Ombudsman, and the courts. So let's just sort of look at that and what each of these sort of levels do. So we take the government. Every day we go, there's a current government. So in Australia right now, it's a Labor government and Anthony Albanese is the Prime Minister, but that might change. So that could change every 3 years. And what you get is each government of the day, they set the workplace relations laws they think are the best. So that might be different than if we had a Liberal government. Okay, and yeah, there might be some new laws they want to propose, but they also might see existing laws and go, I want to change that. Okay, but that's just party specific. So ultimately, they're just setting the rules of the game, but we need someone sort of a little bit more independent than the government to implement these laws and ensure they're being followed. That is called the Fair Work Commission. So what if employees and employers have a query about a workplace relations issue or dispute? Well, we've got this government agency called the Fair Work Commission, and we can kind of leave it at that and go, well, when we talk about this topic, we're just going to talk about Fair Work Commission, or FWC. However, it is probably good to know some background info, but it doesn't hurt to talk about in your responses. There's actually kind of a couple of other little parts within this department called the Fair Work Commission. And the first one is called the Fair Work Ombudsman, or FWO. And what that is that's the place where employees and employers can go to if they have a query about workplace relations. So it's almost like you want to get a ruling from the referee, you go to the government, which in this case is called the Fair Work Commission. And if you want to be specific, the specific department within that is called the Fair Work Ombudsman. Now, on the other hand, what if they can't resolve their disputes? Well, this can't go on forever. We can't have strikes and so on. So we've got something called the Fair Work Division of the Federal Circuit Court of Australia. We will never have to remember that, okay? We're just going to say the courts. What are the courts for? Well, just like a court in any other circumstance, they're the ones that you go to, when you can't resolve a dispute. So the courts would, on behalf of the government, resolve a dispute between employees and employers. So we could just summarize this and go, there's three parts to the role of the government, which we can just say the Fair Work Commission, but technically there's three parts. The Fair Work Commission is the government agency which serves as Australia's National Workplace Relations Tribunal or Court and helps implement Australia's workplace relations laws. It attempts to balance the interests between employees and unions and employers and employer associations. It's kind of the referee. Now, within the Fair Work Commission, there's two parts. So don't worry about the Fair Work Division and all that rest. We'll just say that here's the courts, just like a court you picture when you see a movie or a TV show and they go to court. It's just like that. And there's also this other office called the Fair Work Ombudsman. Now, the Ombudsman, that's an office within the Fair Work Commission, which ensures all workplaces are in compliance with workplace laws. Both employers and employees can go to the Fair Work Ombudsman with any issues they have about workplace relations and the behaviour of the other party. And lastly, we have the courts. So this is the court that hears the matters and disputes between employees and unions and employer associations and employers about issues such as wages, workplace conditions, and unfair dismissal. And they can make legally binding decisions to resolve any dispute, just like a judge in any other court case. So the government has quite a few things to do here, and this is very confusing, seeing all of this on the screen at the same time. So what we could do in the next video is just summarize this and say, look, if we could summarize what the government does, they do 4 things in workplace relations. And we'll say it's just the Fair Work Commission, but again, it doesn't hurt to know that there's these other 2 branches of the government here.